Do you guys understand like what I am piecing together here? It is my view today that Kamala Harris descends from a long line of wealthy slave owners who then turned into communist leaders with the explicit goal of overthrowing countries and overriding people's independent freedom under the guise of offering them more freedom, more handouts. This seems to be the picture that we are painting on both sides of her family. Her mother came from a wealthy Indian communist family, okay? Now we know, or I have a suspicion, that her father as well came from a wealthy family of slave owners. I do believe that this is his true mother, not Beryl. And I'm going to again now show you a different chart. This is just me putting together what I think the true family tree is. And obviously this is going to take a lot more investigation, but I don't know about Scamala Goplin yet. I'm still investigating her. I'm really sticking with Donald Harris yet because I haven't felt like we've answered all the questions. And the Lady Idris Allen thing opened up a huge door. But I think these are his parents. I believe Lady Idris Allen, who allegedly had no children at all, and you can see she lived a very long life. And he describes, the women who raised him lived a long life and says, oh, she died and it was very hard for me and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, Lady Idris Allen, if I'm correct, and that is his mother, that would be a massive secret. And it would be a massive secret we're hiding because it would mean that she essentially descends from communist slave-owning royalty who intentionally divided people and move them across into different countries and put them into powerful positions. Now, again, this is my conclusion based on what I am seeing. There is just no way. There is no way, okay? If there was a way, I would buy a lottery ticket, that all three of the relatives that they listed, Christiana Brown, Beryl, and Miss Iris, that all three we can find records of, but we find them records as workers and not the owners that they allege that they were. Unless this is a case of stolen identity, unless we are looking at something that is so diabolical and sick that they stole the identity of all of them because they needed to create a family tree that would obscure Kamala's true heritage. And the lack of reaction, the lack of an explanation that we are getting, knowing that there are millions of people watching this series, leads me to believe that they are hiding this truth. Also, now suddenly the trail has gone cold of me speaking with Donald Harris's brother. Again, I sense that he was being honest in saying that he did not know. Don't forget, his own brother does not know who his mother is. He says Donald Harris is exceedingly private about that. Why on earth would you need to be exceedingly private about who your mother was? Unless she was someone who was very powerful, who was very connected, and someone who was very involved in politics, unless she was someone who was in support of a man who was rounding up and calling for the extermination of Rastafarians. And you needed the public to believe, despite having that in your line, yes, let's exterminate the Rastafarians. You were going to be so sick and twisted as to sell to the American public that this woman was the first black president of the black female president of the United States. Yeah, you'd want to cover that up. All right, guys, we're getting closer. I am convinced that we are going to be the October surprise because I am telling you things are developing on the Kamala front in a very big way. And I want to say this, I feel it in my soul, in my spirit, that this woman is an operative, that she was selected and that she was groomed by government agencies. I'm comfortable saying that publicly. I hope Kamala comes out and sues me because that would afford us discovery so we can get answers to many questions that we have. She would have to prove that what I was saying was untrue, thanks to strong defamation laws. I've been receiving, by the way, as of late, a ton of emails about Tim Walz as well. Kamala's VP pick, a suspicious VP pick, because who exactly picked him? Absolutely no one out there thinks that it was Kamala herself that said, yeah, give me the governor of Minnesota, huh? Who is he? What do they have on Tim Walz, if anything? Today, we're going to take a brief look into some of the rumors that have been circulating about him. So let's immediately get started. Welcome back. Well, I am not quite sure what to say here, other than I humbly submit myself for your consideration to receive a Pulitzer Prize, maybe Time Person of the Year, a Golden Globe, a Grammy, something. I deserve something for my staunch commitment to the defense of Janet Jackson, because guess what has happened? And by the way, this is not even unbelievable. It's actually the most believable thing in the world. A Jamaican woman has stepped forward, who I can verify to you knew Kamala's Grandma Beryl. And she remembers her affectionately, by the way. Apparently, Grandma Beryl was a wonderful woman. She adored Kamala's Grandma Beryl. It was just one minor detail that was off. You see, the Beryl that she knew, the one that Scamala presented in her book, was not her, because the Beryl she knew was white. Yeah, let's get started. Welcome back to Candace. All right, so all of this was really just common sense. I know it's not that common anymore, but it really was common sense from the beginning. And I want people to know, let the record show, let the history books show, that all I did was conduct basic Black people science. I looked at this photo here, the photo that Scamala put in her book of her and Grandma Beryl, and I said, no. Scientific consensus rejects this theory for a ton of reasons. One of them being, I just didn't feel like this woman was her grandma. I have a Caribbean grandma. They're all up in your face. I don't feel the affection in this photo. I'm not thinking this is a very dark woman. I'm not thinking this is the mother of Donald Harris at all. Like, I know genetics can be funky, but I was going, this woman does not look like she owned and operated a store. There were so many things that were throwing me off. Even the whole story of the grandparents owning all of these stores. I'm going, what are you talking about? 1914 to 1938 in Jamaica, but we were just getting out of slave chains. And you're telling me like your family just became like so dominant and we're running these dry goods stores and this grandma had that. Something was off, okay? And what was off was just the photos they were presenting. These people were too Black. And then once we started looking into it, the fact that her campaign just shut off the tap on speaking about her Blackness. They just wanted to move on as if she had never said it. It was the entire brand. Remember, that's the pitch. She's going to be the first Black female president of the United States. The media was trying to sell that, to force feed that to us. And I said, Black scientific theory says, no, this ain't your grandma. But I was receiving a ton of emails from people that were insisting that Beryl was Kamala's grandmother. Among the emails were a flurry of people suggesting that I speak to a woman known as Lady Colin Campbell. She also goes as Lady C. I'm familiar with her work. I've seen her. She's written in the Daily Mail before, or has been written about in the Daily Mail. She's a British Jamaican author and a socialite who grew up in Jamaica. And she is deep on genealogy. She's written several books regarding the British royals. This woman likes history. She likes facts. And someone had sent me a clip of her from her YouTube channel during which she was fielding questions and people were asking her to look into my research into Kamala Harris. And she said, rather offhandedly, that she had asked around and that she had a friend that was on the island who had confirmed to her that Beryl was, in fact, Kamala's grandmother, seemingly putting to rest all of my theories. But I remained completely undeterred, and I just ignored it. Lady C said that she was hoping to host that friend on her podcast in the future, and that the woman would spill all of the tea on how she knew Kamala's grandmother, Beryl. So I just waited. I waited for the future to arrive, and guess what? The future has arrived. And as promised, Lady C hosted Dorothy, that's the woman's name, Dorothy, the woman who knew Grandma Beryl. And I will tell you, the conversation did not go as Lady C expected. I think primarily because people who did not watch every episode of this series into Scamala were not quite understanding what we were uncovering. There were all of these people making response videos. I was going, you clearly did not watch everything that we're doing. We never said that Beryl did not exist. We always believed that Beryl existed. We simply did not believe that the woman that was presented in Scamala's book was her. We believed that this was a case of stolen identity. Essentially, there was a Beryl, but the woman that was being pictured was not the grandma, and they were playing funny business like commies do, switching identities. And it was strange that even though Scamala presented a picture of Grandma Beryl in the book, she didn't mention her at all in the book. What's up with that? You're just trying to blackify yourself. Well, Lady C likes research. Lady C was good on her word. She hosted Dorothy. So let's watch the first part of their conversation. This is Dorothy, again, the Jamaican woman who grew up and knew Grandma Beryl, Miss Beryl, personally. Take a listen.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. We have a special guest with us today, Dorothy Ottey, who is an old friend of mine. She's Jamaican, and she used to know Miss Beryl very well. They grew up in the same village.
Well, I grew up in the village where Miss Beryl lived. She was a lot older than me, of course.
Well, obviously.
And Miss Beryl is the grandmother of Vice President Kamala Harris.
Yes.
And she was just the most delightful lady. I have such fond memories of her. Excuse me. So there's a sweet that you have in Jamaica as a child, or grown-ups eat the sweet that's made from coconuts and caramelized sugar, and it's called a buster. Have you ever had?
Darling, in my day it was called Bustamante Backbone.
Okay, so it was called a buster. And Miss Beryl had a shop. And in the mornings, my Uncle Cecil would take me by the hand. We'd go up the road for a walk. And on the way, everyone that goes past, it would be, "Good morning, Mas Cecil." And "How are you, Miss Dar?" And by the time we got to Miss Beryl's shop, she would either offer me a buster or this other delicious sweet called a paradise plum.
Yes, I remember paradise.
Yeah,
plums.
but Miss Beryl, she was just so lovely. We would have these conversations as a little girl whenever I went past with Uncle Cecil, and it was always, "How are you doing with your books? Are you reading? Are you learning your times table?" Of course, she was a businesswoman, so she was very good at things like mathematics, of course. And she was, looking back now, you could see she was a trailblazer. Because the shop that she had, she actually built it herself. So we lived in a village, and her shop was the only what you would call an upstairs, downstairs house. All the other houses were like bungalows on one level with gardens and stuff. I remember in our garden, we had gladiolas.
Okay, a couple of things flagged to me as interesting there. So she was really good at mathematics. Okay, so we're talking about a Black person. Again, this would not have been more than a couple of decades removed from slavery. And she was really good at mathematics, extremely well-read, owned and operated a shop, and had the biggest house. I mean, what are we talking about? This doesn't feel like the correct kind of a Black story that I'm used to. A couple of generations ago, you go back, most Black people have my grandparents' sharecropping farm. I mean, maybe, who knows? I'm like, okay. Very clearly, though, we know she's telling the truth right away, because this is a good fact check against what Donald Harris wrote when he wrote a story about their Jamaican heritage for Jamaican Online Global. And he talked about those bustas. He talked about him and his sister Enid and how they loved the bustas. I think he said it was around Easter time. So everything she's saying sounds correct. But it was this next part, that instantly let me know that this woman was the real deal, because she presents a detail, something that I know to be a fact that I had not ever presented to the public. Remember when I told you that I got on the phone with a family member of Scamala Harris? And that family member told me that Donald Harris had two siblings, Enid Harris, who I have spoken to you guys about, and another sibling who I had never mentioned. It was Beryl's son, and his name was Kenneth. And this woman starts speaking about the Kenneth that I had never mentioned, who would be Donald Harris's brother. Take a listen.
Was it a village or was it a hamlet? How many people would have been in it? How many houses? How many residents?
So at one time, everyone that lived there, was a village. There was probably about 80 or 90 people. But at one time, everyone that lived there was a relative of mine.
Really?
Yes.
What about Miss Beryl?
So this would have been before people such as Miss Beryl moved there. But before that, everyone who lived there, and even as a child growing up, most of the residents were connected in some way on my mother's father's side, my grandfather's side, where they were all related. But Miss Beryl, my darling, also had a son. He was called Kenneth. And Kenneth had a motorbike, the equivalent of what we would now call a Harley Davidson. And of course, so at the time I would have been no more than 4 or 5. I'm not interested in what make your bike is. And he would put me on the front of the bike, you know, whenever I came past with Uncle Cecil, and I would sit there and he would switch the engine on. And of course, looking back now, I realize the bike never moved, but he just held on to me, and I thought I was riding a bike, and I grew up absolutely loving motorbikes. He was very handsome.
Oh, Beryl must have had some money. Her son has the equivalent of a Harley Davidson. He was very handsome. He's got riding around on his motorbike. What are we talking about here? Like I said, this is when I knew that this woman was dialed in, because I had never spoken about Kenneth publicly, not for any particular reason. I just literally hadn't gotten around to it as I've been collecting all of this evidence to present to the public on Scamala's family and looking into Enid and looking into Kenneth. So very interesting. Again, sounds like this Beryl had a lot of money. It's just not giving the person that is pictured in Scamala's book. Now, of course, naturally, Scamala Harris then comes up in this conversation. And Dorothy keeps this same positive energy. She's very positive, right? She has a spirit about her. She has this fond memory. Delightful. She's delightful in her approach about Beryl. And she's delightful in her approach about Scamala and Scamala's features. She really likes Scamala's facial features. I'll tell you why. Take a listen.
And Miss Beryl, by the way, I see Vice President Harris on the box, and I sit up straight and I think, my God, she looks so much like Miss Beryl. Her facial features, the only thing is Miss Beryl was much smaller in stature, but
Well, okay, if Miss Beryl, because Scamala is very fair-skinned.
Right.
Was Beryl fair-skinned?
yes, she was.
She was?
She was. She was fair-skinned.
She was? Okay.
Yes, she was very fair-skinned
Oh,
with black hair.
really?
Yes.
Okay.
So she was so fair-skinned that now that I'm older and I can spot people by their skin coloring, etc., for me, I would say there was something Irish there.
How interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say somewhere along the line, she would have had ancestors that were Irish. Yes.
Actually, can I show you a photograph
Of course.
of an old lady?
Yes.
And some people speculate that this is Miss Beryl.
Right.
So, sorry, bear
That's
with me.
okay.
I am so untechnological.
Okay.
It's just pathetic.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Nah, that's not Miss Beryl.
That's not Miss
That's
Beryl.
definitely not Miss Beryl.
Okay.
That's not Miss Beryl.
So,
And-
I think you have to just show you.
Yeah.
So,
That is not Miss Beryl.
That's not Miss Beryl.
Definitely not Miss Beryl.
Okay.
And I know what she looks like. I couldn't have been in a dream, and she definitely did not look like that.
There's another person, but could that be Miss Beryl?
No, that's not
That's
Miss
not
Beryl.
Miss Beryl
That's not
either.
Miss Beryl either.
Okay.
Don't know who that is.
Okay.
That's not Miss Beryl. That ain't Miss Beryl. You know, as you were describing the fair skin and looking like Scamala, I was thinking this can't be the Miss Beryl grandma that's in Scamala's book. And clearly you see Lady C's going, wait, fair skin? What, maybe, is this? Nope, that's not Miss Beryl. I didn't dream. That's not Miss Beryl. Yeah, that sounds about right. You're saying Irish. And that's funny because Judge Joe Brown had a very distinct memory that Donald Harris told him that he was Irish and Hindu. And things are starting to add up, not in Scamala Harris's favor. And I don't know what to say here, ladies and gentlemen, other than I am truly, untypically speechless. I don't think I possess within me the adequate vocabulary to discuss my distaste for a woman who borrowed a Black person for her autobiography so that she could secure the Black vote. Do you understand how fundamentally racist that is? Do you understand how despicable that is? I mean, you have to be the worst kind of political vermin to borrow a Black person to put in your book to present to the public as your grandma, who definitively was not your white Irish grandma. Okay, I don't have the word. I need someone to throw me a thesaurus so I can find it. I need to expand my vocabulary to be able to legitimately express my disgust for Kamala Harris and my now general disgust for any person who supports this woman or from here on out purports that she is the first Black anything, okay? She is beyond despicable. This woman has no soul. You have to have no soul to do that. And if my instincts are correct, the person that she is showing is indeed someone she knows and is likely, like I said from the very beginning, the help. The help who would have taken on the name of the people who they worked for. It's very common. This is why you talk about having slave names. You take on the last name, the first name. When we saw that woman who was listed looking for a housekeeper position that said Beryl or Christie, it is my suspicion that this was the help, meaning this was likely the woman that was working for the wealthy Miss Beryl who was buying her children Harley Davidsons. I mean, it's just, this is unbelievable. This should end her chances at the White House. If we have any sort of moral sensibility in this country, you would never allow a person like this to assume office, because if she is willing to lie like this, if she is willing to, this is essentially the worst kind of blackface. Okay, this is what you are seeing now. Kamala Harris is, in fact, a minstrel show. She said, I'm running for president. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm just going to blackify myself. Fake aunties, fake uncle photos. Oh, I actually just called them. What is she going to say to this? Is she going to come out now and say, oh, when I said Grandma Beryl, I meant like that's just what we called her affectionately, Grandma Beryl, as she was doing our laundry and picking up after us. We called her, what is she going to say that is possibly going to be accepted? And will the press do their job now? Stop pretending this is a conspiracy and recognize that this woman put on blackface because she wants to win the election. Megan Thee Stallion, I'm calling you, every person who twerked, danced, applauded, said to the public, this is a Black woman, it is now incumbent upon you to take a step back, examine what we have revealed, and to take it back. Take everything you said back about this woman. Apologize for platforming her, for believing this. It's fine. I'll accept the apology, but keep the exact same energy. Oh, she's Black? Okay. Now that you know that she's not, you should be angry, and you should present these facts to the public and to your followers and to your fan base. Like I said, I am shocked. I'm not shocked, but I am shocked. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am not surprised. It was inevitable. I was never going to let go. Like, I pretty much knew that I was on the right track. Her silence about the matter was deafening. The removal of everything seemed very suspicious. No longer speaking about her Blackness seemed very suspicious. Now she's too highbrow. I'm not even going to address. You know why you're not going to address it? Because you're not Black. You are not Black. You never have been Black a day in your life. You truly disgust me. I want you to know that you are filth. Kamala Harris is filth. And Lady C was similarly shocked, gobsmacked, as she put it. Take a listen.
And gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked. And it then begs the question, did she seriously think she was going to be able to get away with this?
She did.
I mean, I know Candace Owens has been going hell for leather on this, and Candace Owens is clearly Black. So this is not about anti-Blackness, because, as you could see, Dorothy is not white. So, I mean, I'm just stunned that any ambitious politician would present as a grandparent of hers, and Kamala Harris is very fair-skinned. Whether she calls herself black or brown, she's still fair-skinned. But she definitely has black blood. So to that extent, it's not anything artificial. What does seem to be extraordinary is the creation of a black grandmother when her grandmother was of color but wasn't black. And she just, did she get somebody off the street and pop them in the photograph? Was it a helper? Who was this woman? I mean, it boggles the imagination.
Don't you worry. Leave it with me, Lady C. From one Lady C to another, I'm going to get to the bottom of who that woman is in the picture, and I'm going to get to the bottom of who the Irish barrel actually is, because here's what happens now. Blood is in the water, my friends, okay? If you watch the full interview, you should cut over to Lady C's YouTube channel and watch the entire thing. That woman gave a ton of accidental clues about the Irish barrel that we are now looking for. She excelled at mathematics. She built a home. She resembles Kamala Harris. She had black hair. She owned a store which specialized in making bustas. Now we can refocus our attention and look for the true barrel, the white-looking barrel. And we are going to be able to find that person. I sense it. Now, like I said, there is way too much information out there, and we need to put tremendous amounts of pressure for Kamala Harris to respond, because like I said, you have to be borderline psychopathic to do what she did. Do you understand? Like, just take a pause here and recognize how demented you have to be, okay, to approve the printing of a book with a photo, featuring a photo of who you purport is your grandma barrel. You standing next to a woman who was likely cleaning your dirty underwear, okay? Likely. That's what I think. I feel it in my soul that that's who these women were that were pictured in here. This woman doesn't recognize Iris. Grandma Iris was the second photo she showed. We zoomed in on it. She doesn't recognize anyone. Dorothy's going, I don't know who these people are, okay? You have to be utterly demented, hell-bent on power. You will stop at nothing to achieve power if you have no shame. If you have no shame, knowing that you come from a long line of slave owners, that you would then appropriate the identity of a real black woman so that you can what? Re-enslave black people in America today. That's exactly why she's doing it. She is disturbed, okay? Like I said, this is now a beginning. We get to refocus our attentions. I have a ton of suspicions. I truly believe that I was on the right track when I examined the same thing for Christiana Brown. I believe they're lying about who Christiana Brown is. And I'm going to find both of these women. What do we have, 18, 19 days until the election? I'm not letting go, guys. I am just, email me if you find any information, info@CandaceOwens.com. You know where we will be. This woman is not going to get away with this. I'm disgusted.
You can say whatever you want, but the statistics don't lie. We know that if you raise the minimum wage, 2/3 of people in this country on the minimum wage are women. They need that help. We know that there is assault on women's health care rights from this administration, things like that.
Jess, please, I hate this selective feminism that we hear on the left all the time, okay? Well, don't make this a feminism issue, because it's not a feminism issue.
But it is,
when you're going out and attacking women, you're not,
finish.
I'm not done, okay? When you're going out and attacking women, you are not a feminist. This is not defensible whatsoever. And you sit here and you say this because you care about mothers. The basis of this is that people are upset that illegal immigrants are being separated from their mothers. Why don't you refocus some of that energy to the black community? They've been having their families separated. In fact, it's subsidized in the black community. You appreciate single motherhood. You are giving more money to families for fatherless absence. So all of this selective fake outrage, when you guys do not have the same defenses for the black community, is really lost on me. And it's time's up on this altogether. I think the black community has had enough of you guys being selectively outraged for parents of illegal immigrants, but not for the parents of the black community who have been separated from their family for about 6 decades.
All right,
now.
and I just want to...
Let me ask you something. Do you hate Americans with black skin color?
Absolutely not. I actually love Americans with black skin color so much that I'm willing to fall on the sword 1,000 times for them to wake up and realize that we are being lied to, abused, and used by the Democrat Party.
How about Americans with white skin color? Do you hate them?
I do not, and that's a problem for people on the left.